Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. All praise and blessings to the Almighty. Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I greet you with the universal greeting of peace. It is indeed a great honor, great pleasure for me to have been asked by Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman and the Gift of the Givers Foundation to officiate or facilitate tonight's function. I don't like the term director of programs. It seems too formal because we want tonight's evening to be an evening not just of speeches, but of getting to know each other, to mingle and to exchange friendships. And I know I've met a couple of people already, and it's been really pleasing that this evening is going to be one where we will socialize, but the focus is on the launch of the book, the Imtiaz Sooliman and the Gift of the Givers, A Mercy to All. That is the focus of tonight's evening. There will be a more formal introduction to our keynote speakers, but from my side, Farid Sayed, I welcome you tonight on behalf of Gift of the Givers Foundation, on behalf of all the backroom staff. They've put in a lot of work, and in particular on behalf of Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, who is the director and founder of Gift of the Givers, and on behalf of the manager and the director of operations here in Gauteng, Alauddin Sayed. So welcome to you all, and enjoy the evening. And as a very well-known British MP, when the Labour Party was still a Labour Party that you could kind of look up to, Michael Foot, when he introduced Lata Mangeshkar and Dilip Kumar at a concert at the Royal Albert Hall, and he said, "You have not come here to listen to me, you have come here to listen to them." So I would first call upon our first guest, someone who is really the driving force behind this. And you know, normally publishers have a nightmarish task of putting a work together over a period of a year or sometimes more. But I'm told that this was put together in a matter of months. And that's a tribute to the publishers. So it's my pleasure to call upon our first speaker, Louise Grantham, the publisher from Bookstorm. Louise.
He knows the research well, the information, and authenticate what I'm going to say. Shafiq Morton would know that. And of course, it's easy for me. I don't have to speak. Nobody has to interview me. Nobody has to call me. And nobody has to sit with me or get information. Just Shafiq knows everything. So I said, meet him. They met in the Cape Town office. Khawa, the Cape Town manager, was also here. Tribute goes to my staff, all the offices. Khawa is a live wire in the Cape Town office. And they met, and it was love at first sight. And they said, okay, he'll write the book. Louise gave timelines, and Shafiq did an amazing job. When I say the man did an amazing job, I learned about myself. I learned about the organization, and I learned about the projects which I'd forgotten over the last 22 years. Shafiq did magnificent research, I must tell you. All credit to him, because I refused to take any calls. He sent me SMSs, 6 or 7, very politely. "I'm very sorry to disturb you. I just need a small point, a small information." And I would send him back without saying, "Yes, please, thank you," anything like that. And on 6 or 7 times, not more than that, I sent Shafiq the information. But when I read, I think he needs a hand for what he's done. And then, of course, I didn't read the book. They wrote all information, and they were going to go to print. And they arranged a big launch in Maritzburg on the 22nd of August, which I had to cancel, to say I can't make it. I'm involved in Gaza now. But I need to see what's written in this book, because it's under Gift of the Giver's name. Every line has to be perfect. Every statement, every date has to be correct. So I started reading it in the month of Ramadan. It took me a few hours. I basically screen read through the book, and I made the corrections that I wanted, not major things, just change some dates in some countries. And I gave it, I said, okay, it can go for print. And I liked Shafiq's style. While reading the book, 3 things came to mind. Firstly, the context of the disaster. Of course, Gift for the Givers are disaster specialists, but that's not the only things we do. We have 21 different categories of projects. Shafiq captured the disasters, and he captured several of the projects which many people don't know about, because the media covers and focuses mostly on the disasters and not the local projects. So I looked at the book and I looked at his style. Soul to soul, the communication of the heart. This is a spiritual journey. That is the beginning of Gift of the Givers. It started heart to heart, soul to soul, through a spiritual man, and the instruction came from God Almighty straight. About that there is no doubt. That's just how the journey started. Gift of the Good-Givers has a spiritual beginning. And then he carried on and said, that's him. That is when he was on pilgrimage. He went on further to say in Arabic, Khairun nas man yanfa'un nas. Best among people are those who benefit mankind. And he said the emphasis is on the word mankind, not Arab, not Indian, not Muslim. The emphasis is on the word mankind. You treat everybody equally with love and compassion. He said, this is your journey, now you can go back home. But before you go, I need to tell you something which is the most important thing in your life. He said, my son, remember that whatever you do is done through you and not by you. And that's one of the reasons I didn't want to write this book. Because whatever is done is not my achievement. It is through the grace of God Almighty and because of the spiritual teacher's guidance. But in time, over prayer, I prayed before I accepted to do this book. There's nothing we do without prayer. Everything, you see it in the first chapter. We don't start a mission without praying. Because everything is guided. And I'll give you one or two examples as we go along. But my teams are the witness. They've seen how it works at all times. And before I forget, I think all credit goes to the teams. Because they are the focus of this book. This book is useless without those people who put their lives on the line, who close their practice at short notice, who leave their families, who work with the will, who work with sincerity and commitment. This book is celebrating South Africanness. It's celebrating the skills of South African people. The Ubuntu of a team that goes across and the Ubuntu of the nation that stands behind the team and takes us forward to deliver the message, to assist, to save lives, and they do it selflessly. This book is an explanation of those people. Because without them, there is no book. Without them, there is no saving of life. Without them, there is no South Africa. It's the South African people working together. As the teacher said again, the hand cannot do the work of the eye. The eye cannot do the work of the tongue. The tongue cannot do the work of the brain. But if any of these things are not working, the body can't function effectively. So the South African people, the media, the corporates, the government, even the people in Orange Farm and the pensioners and those in Alex have played a role making us carry the flag of South Africa and carrying the flag of humanity, humaneness and Ubuntu in every corner of the world. This is what has been achieved through this. So the teacher said, now, go home. I go home, the first disaster, not even, it had already started. It was in Bosnia, 1992 to 1995. That's University of Sarajevo. I'm only going to show you a few examples. I'm not going to take the whole night. That's University of Sarajevo. I went in August, the first time with 31 containers of aid. Took it, food, blankets and that kind of stuff. November I went back with another 8 containers of warm stuff. Because in November, December, the chill factor in Eastern Europe, where Bosnia is, drops to minus 21 degrees. Bombings have destroyed all homes, so there's no roof, no house, no gas, no electricity, no heating, no warm clothes, no blanket, no tent, no jackets. They're bleeding, they're sick, they're cold, they got hypothermia, they're going to die without food and medical care. And on that cold, we needed to do something. So we took blankets and tents and warm stuff. It was on that mission that I realized, when I say the idea was put in my head, I realized nothing. Everything is done through you. And the idea came, put up a field hospital, a containerized mobile hospital. I saw 3 units in the display, an arm squad display, a sterilization, an X-ray, and a theater. And when I looked at that, I said, why can't we build a fully fledged containerized hospital? That brought in another team. You see, Africa had to show the world who we are. Because we never believe in ourselves. We always think we're 2nd grade and 3rd grade. We don't believe in our own skills as doctors, as professionals. We always look at northern countries. We need to believe in ourselves. The teacher said, whatever you do, be the best at what you do. So we took that very seriously. Came I went, you see now how it goes back? Because of him opening my mind in Istanbul. Because seeing people of different cultures and religions getting together. I contacted the company, the maker of 3 units. It was an Afrikaner company. I would have never done it had I not gone to Istanbul. I went to Pretoria. When you drive on the roads, you see the trucks, they have a board at the bottom saying Afrit. Many trailers on the road have the word Afrit. Afrit is the company, Fundamental Engineering in Roslyn. I flew to the man's factory, spoke to him. A few weeks later, he came to my house in Maritzburg. I said, Johan, we need to design a fully-fledged hospital. I said, there's one problem. We have just formed as an organization. I can't guarantee you I'll pay you because we're dependent on donor money. So he said, how much deposit have you got? I said, 300,000 rand. He said, I'll take it. I said, what if I don't find the rest? He said, I have faith. I trust you. You will pay me, you will find the money, and we will build this hospital together. Because of my experience in Istanbul, I started looking at a human being not in a color, not in a religion, not in a race. I looked at him for his value as a human being. This is the essence of what this book is all about. And when I looked at Johan, I said, oh my God, bless this man. He's taking a chance. And I said, what if I can't pay you? He said, then that's fine. Not 6. We built 28 containers, state of the art. This is the port of Trieste in Italy. That's the SAS Otaniqua. I work closely with government. Whichever the government is, whoever the government is, I work with them. The missions are much more successful. South African government and governments on the other side of the world. That's the ambulance, that's the SAS Otaniqua. We took a generator. You have to be forward thinking. You can't build a hospital, put in a walls and expect it to work. So you took a generator that can service the entire hospital. And you take the diesel. These are heaters. Remember I told you minus 21 degrees? So we took the heaters. That's the theater unit. And that photograph was taken when I was very old in those days. I look much younger now. These are the 2 guys, Johan and Koos van der Weteren. That's the theater unit. The other angle, and that's Glenn Webb, the ambassador of South Africa to Italy. They sent the ambassador out, as I told you. Sterilization unit, X-ray unit. Again, forward thinking. This was in 93, when we thought we are so backward. 93. In the X-ray unit, if you go to the X-ray department, you know everybody wears an apron. In the old days, now they hide behind the wall. But why? Because the radium may cause damage. So the radium must, from here in the stun shipping container, will penetrate the outside. So what did we do? South African technology, we built lead into the wall of the container to make sure the radium does not penetrate on the outside. But what's the point of taking an X-ray if you can't develop the film? It's a waste of time. So in the back, we put a dark room. What's the point of having a dark room if you don't have X-ray film? So we send 30,000 X-ray films. 28 containers of medical supplies, medical hospital, and 10 containers of backup supplies to keep the hospital functioning for 1 year. If they shut everything down around the whole war zone, for 1 year it can function. IV fluids, sutures, medicines, bandages, everything to do for 1 year, we send it in. And that's the X-ray machine. Incubator unit for newborns, orthopedic unit, burns unit, dental unit, outpatient unit, admin unit, and the building where we put the hospital. As I told you, I work with governments. The gentleman was the foreign minister of Bosnia initially. After that, he was the prime minister of Bosnia. His name is Haris Silajic. The lady standing next to me, her name is Sajida Silajic. His sister, the first ambassador of the first mission outside Bosnia in Turkey. Strangely enough, to get to Bosnia, I was forced to go back to Turkey. It started there. This is Ali Izetbegovic, the president of Bosnia. He passed on in 2004. In 2005, my wife, myself, and my kids were invited as guests of the Bosnian government to come to Bosnia. They wanted to give tribute and say thank you after 12 years. And I said, I can't come for that reason. They said, you'll insult us, you'll hurt us, you'll have to come. We went. We arrived there. We were taken to East Mostar, where the hospital was initially put. There's no hospital there anymore. All the equipment is out, is now in the military barracks, became the main hospital. In the military barracks, I met the gentleman who was in charge, the doctor I put in charge of the hospital in 1993. I said, you're still here? He said, yes. He said, remember you told me that in this hospital, you can do everything besides open heart surgery? I said, yes. He said, meet this lady. And he brought a lady. He said, we removed shrapnel from the heart of this lady in this hospital. And you see those 4 children? They were born to her in this hospital. All of them were born in this hospital and they all survived because of this jet unit and this hospital that you South Africans sent. He said thousands of lives were saved here, thousands of people were helped here. You don't know the blessings South Africa has received because of this hospital. CNN filmed the hospital. In 1994, 1st February, the footage came. The CNN reporter said, this South African containerized hospital is equivalent to any of the best hospitals in Europe. And he was not comparing a container hospital to container hospitals in Europe, because there are no container hospitals in Europe. It was a feat of South African engineering. What we as a nation can do, standing together and take the hate and the bigotry and the fighting and the conflict away. We carry the symbol of Ubuntu, the power of Ubuntu if we work together. And I'll finish off with a spiritual story on this chapter, on Bosnia. It was a weekday afternoon. I just about to do my prayer, and it struck me, my friend, you send the whole hospital, but you didn't buy the surgical instruments. How are they going to cut? With fork and knife? Not going to work. But after you spend so much of money, what are you going to do? I found a company, they say 60,000 rand. In 93, 60,000 rand was a lot of money for theatre instruments. I said, oh my God, we can't afford this. Made the afternoon prayer, I said, God, time to do the business. I go to the post office, check my mail. A whole lot of catalogs come. I'm a GP, remember, in private practice, from 86. The medical companies send you hundreds of brochures every month. Anyway, the brochures come. I find one brochure, surgical brochure. All instruments that I need are in this surgical brochure. I phoned the company, I said, I need this. I said, how much? They said, 30,000 rand. Half price. Either somebody's robbing me or somebody's giving me junk. They said, which the company that quoted you the price? I gave him the company. He said, we are the suppliers to that company. That's why we give you half the price. Now, what's the strange story about that? I'm in practice from 1986. This is 1993. From 86 to 93, this surgical company had never sent me a brochure. The day I needed the brochure, it was there in the post box. From 1993 up till today, I never received a brochure from that company ever again. So you know who the postman is. 2004, the whole world ran to Indonesia, to India, to Sri Lanka, to Thailand, because the tsunami hit over 12 regions. Indonesia was the textile heart of the world. Thailand was the holiday resort of the world. India said no, we don't want anybody. India always says no. But in India's case it was special, because the Andaman Islands were struck. And the Andaman Islands is the military base of India. Sri Lankan president came up and said, we don't know how to respond to this. In 48 hours we had teams in Sri Lanka. We were the first team in the world. From Cape Town, as you were saying, we were the first team in the world. Zora's father and brother were the first who arrived in Sri Lanka. In 48 hours we met the president. In 5 days we spent 7 million rand. We were the first country agency in the world given land by the Sri Lankan president, Chandrika Kumaratunga at that time. And we were the first country agency in the world that built houses in Sri Lanka. Who says Africa can't do it? But Sri Lanka was by the way. To me, the emphasis was Africa. If Africa does not respond to Africans, don't expect anybody else to do it for you. So we need to set a precedent. It was in Hafun, on the northeast of Somalia. Everything was destroyed. We had to go in. Logistics is an important part of what we do. Those books covers it very well. We hide an illusion. It's all our own planes we fly. A Russian plane, as you can see, better than first class. You relax, you can play soccer, volleyball, you can walk around, nobody tells you anything, you don't need to sit down. It's very easy. So, but the old problem was, you can't land in Bosaso, the place you're going to, because the runway is too short. So we have to take this plane and make plan B. Plan B is, we change into an Antonov in Uganda. And you take two Antonovs, and you take the stuff of Illusion, and you put in Antonov. But there's one major problem. You can't sit in the Antonov like this. Because if you sit like this, you'll be very dead when the plane goes up in the sky, because there's no oxygen there. So what do? The Burmaka plan. Everybody sits with the pilot. Behind him, above him, below him, and around him. 17 people in the cockpit. But when we get to the Bosaso, somebody made a mistake with the calculations. The runway was 300 meters shorter than what they told us. Now what do? You always plan ahead. I took Russian fighter pilots. They just dropped the plane, boom, down. Just like that, they dropped the plane on the ground. And all of us went flying in every direction. No seatbelts. But they got the job done. From here, of course, we met the government people that were there. But we know how to get to Harfoon. This is only Bosaso. You take that truck, you have to travel 400 kilometers. It takes 16 hours because there is no road. And when you get to Harfoon, you have to wait for the sea tide to go back so you can drive across the sand in the sea to deliver the goods. These are what South Africans do. They risk their life and then they come across the sea tide again, it goes back, and that's how they can drive back. And that's what they do. Go into the area, destroyed fishing boats, we replaced the fishing boats, certain things are going fast. This was our first medical mission. 2004 was our first medical mission. It taught us something very important. We took it for granted. You see, we go to doctors, we have enough information, Google, go to private hospital, check in the news, read the health magazine, we can do enough things. We call them who's sick. All 2,000 people came. I said, all 2,000 we are sick. First lady was in the line, what's wrong with you? I had a headache 3 years ago. Sounds funny, isn't it? Because they don't understand whether a headache is life-threatening or not. They don't know whether they're going to die from a headache. Because they don't have access to information. And after that mission, we realized psychosomatic care, counseling, saying a kind word, all the things the teacher said is very important for our medical aspect of the mission. We don't do the medical aspect only, but it's very important for the medical aspect of the mission. That's the team that went. And when I left there, I said, we can't leave them alone. So we decided to pull a health center inside Harfoon. This is a health center that we built over the years. That's how it looks in the middle of a desert. That's our board, our center, we run it. Because South Africans support it. Because South Africans believe in what we do. Because people pray and they give us a hand. I'm jumping. In 2010, I just come back from the holiday, strangely from Syria. The same call that I got in Cape Town, the same bloody guy irritated my holiday again. Yusuf Abramji from 702. 26 December 2004, in the middle of the holiday, he called me to say, you heard of tsunami? When he said, you heard of tsunami? I thought you were swearing me. What is this word tsunami? Never heard of this word. Research, I learned something new. 2010, 12 January, 10 past 6 in the morning. He said, have you heard? There's an earthquake in Haiti. I said, Yusuf, I just got off the plane. I don't know. He said, put the TV on. Put the TV on, saw the pictures. Now, at that time, I'm in this business already for 18 years. I looked at the pictures. I said, Yusuf, from what I'm seeing, there's 30,000 people dead already in that small space. He said, are you going to respond? I said, yes. 10 past 10, 6, I saw the pictures. 6:30, we were ready with the medical teams. And 7:30, we were ready with the search and rescue teams. It was the first time in our history we added search and rescue. We never had search and rescue. As we were evolving, I can speak here for the whole week. So I'm just telling you short things. Search and rescue was added to the mission. Ahmed Bam, and I'll call my teams a little later onto the front, and Mani House were the two people in charge of going to Haiti. That you can see under the rubble, the destruction, the pain, the anguish, and the death. But the problem was, how do you go to get to Haiti? It's on the other side of the moon. Far away. And there's only one way to get there, either to Europe or to America. Now, flying to America is a big problem. If you have a beard like Hashim Amla, big problems. The bigger the beard, the bigger the terrorist. So we got a big problem. What do? So we decided to fly via Europe. Again, I called DIRCO. That time they called Foreign Affairs. And I said, I need help. We'll fly to France. They instructed the French government, 15 minutes. The Schengen visa was issued to the whole team. That is the power of when God wants things done. We said, in courtesy, we will use Air France. And I told them, give me in writing, a guarantee you will get my teams into Haiti, because the airport will close. They said the airport is open. I said, I know the airport is open, but the airport will close. They said, I said, give me a guarantee in writing. Which airline in the world gives you guarantee in writing? Air France gave me a guarantee in writing. Ahmad is leaving with the team, but I know they're going to have a problem. Part of the job, 24 hours you're going to stay awake because your team's life depends on what you're going to do. Their safety, their progress, everything depends on what you're going to do. You can't put that phone off. You have to be thinking of each step along the line. And as Ahmad and them get in the plane, I phoned the Catholic Society in Johannesburg. I said, do you guys know the Pope? The guy said, what do you mean? I said, we Muslims, we're connected to everybody in the world. Surely somebody knows the Pope. He said, why? I said, I want the Catholic Society agency to meet me in the Dominican Republic. Because these guys are never going to fly to Haiti. Within a few hours, they said the arrangement is made. Catholic Relief Services, CRS, and Caritas will meet your team in Dominican Republic. I can't stick because I'm waiting for Ahmed to call me the moment he lands. He lands, half an hour later he says, I got a problem. I said, I know you got a problem. You can't fly to Port-au-Prince, isn't it? He said, how did you know? I said, common sense. This earthquake went, it destroyed the government buildings. It destroyed all the houses. It destroyed the hospital. It destroyed the harbor. You think it stopped outside the airport? The airport is gone. You guys are going to go to Dominican Republic and the Catholic team will be waiting for you there. Got off the plane, Catholic team was there. But why could I do that? I did that because the spiritual teacher taught me the value of a human, taught me the value of culture, taught me the value of working with other people without prejudice. And they responded to me without prejudice also, to Ahmed and his team. But of course they got confused. Because when you see Chinese, they all look the same. But when you see South Africans, oh, big Afrikaner guy with English accent, Indian guy, Hindu guy, what the hell are these? Where did they come from? Rainbow nation, a true rainbow nation. But they were received with warmth. And they were taken to the compound. In the UN compound, you worked 3 hours. In the Catholic compound, you worked 8 hours. That's the mixed team. But you know why I like Afrikaner guys? They know how to make the bright face. They know how to put up the tents, and they can carry heavy things. I'm in management. I watch them do all those things. They get to the site of the rubble. Now, part of the plan is to make friends. So they made friends with the Mexican. That's a Mexican dog. Ahmed is shocked, but the dog only speaks Spanish. So Ahmed doesn't know what to do. Take the dog and make a plan. Together the dog, they go to the area. And they get to the area and they make world history. An African team made world history. For the first time in the history of the world, a team from Africa took out somebody alive from a rubble in an earthquake anywhere in the history of the world. It has never been done before. 64-year-old Anna Zizi in the Catholic Church, Ahmed, Mani and their whole team went in and they took her out alive. On day 8, 20th January 2010, no oxygen, no water, no food, fractured hip, completely enclosed, and they took her out alive. See the spiritual part of the story. The first word she says is, I love God. Can you imagine? For that one person, every effort, every cent spent was worth it because we saved one life. And we all know in all religions, he who saved one life saved the whole of mankind. My medical teams have saved mankind millions of times over and over again. And they are South African. And the second thing she said, in her pain, she did not forget her gratitude. She told him, I love you. These guys take great risks. Gas explosion inside a building, methane gas explosion, building collapses of them. They take great risks when they go. And I'll just tell you something else that's not in the pictures. Or let me show you first the medical teams. The medical teams went. The whole world didn't know what to do. Everybody said, we don't have the equipment. There's no functioning theater. How are we going to respond? The South African team said, we will do this. We're adaptable. We're flexible. We can make things happen. They have the right temperament. They never sat back. They put themselves forward. The French and American teams that were there went around Port-au-Prince and saying that if you want to live If you want medical care, then go to the dream team. And the dream team is from South Africa. The big Afrikaner guys went to the church. They got onto their knees and they washed the floor. They washed the wall. And then together they started helping the Mexican team, the one with the dog. And they started helping them, but what they did was heartbreaking. Because people, see, when there's no ethics, this book is about ethics and principles. People who don't have ethics and principles, they chopped off the hand of the child, but they didn't do it properly. So you now had to chop more of the hand of the child, or more of the leg of the child. Not one child, many hundreds of children and adults. And they kept on doing this over and over again. The stench of death outside, broken buildings, looting, all the pain and suffering. And then after you finish the child and tell him go home, the child tells you go home where? There is no home. There's no parents, there's no grandparents, there's no clothes, there's no medical care, there's no food. And you see this kind of trauma all the time. Eventually the big guys break down. Because of the pain and the suffering, you have to bring them back home. Because otherwise they'll get destroyed. So you bring them back and you send the next teams. But they do that and they go back over and over again because they want to help suffering humans. This is not gift of the givers. This is the South African spirit. This is who the people of South Africa are. This is all you. It's all you. Your donations, your prayers, your kind words, you make this thing happen. Because when these teams go, they said we can feel the prayers of the people taking us as we're going along. I always make a joke, I say, this is my fat team. My dietitians, they don't do their job properly. 2013. But each year I see men getting more and more crazy. I haven't seen more craziness than what I've seen in Syria. October 2013, I went. Tried to find a place. December 2013, I went again. Found a building, ordinary building. Found one doctor. God sent me one doctor. And we said, we need to make this place functional. In 70 days, in a war zone, with no electricity, no water, no production, no economy, no skilled staff, thousands of deaths, everything coming from Turkey, in 70 days we took an ordinary building and converted it into an emergency hospital. And you see the pictures just now. In March I went back to see the place, and then in April we took the teams and we went. I spoke to our government, I spoke to others. Because of the political issues involved in Syria, nobody was keen to help you cross that border. Obstruction every level. I follow God's law. I don't follow man's law, and I don't follow international law. And I told the country, and I told the president directly, I will cross that border legally or illegally, and nobody's going to stop me. And that's exactly what we did. We crossed the border through the river, through the dam. But the South African journalists, being very enthusiastic, filmed it and showed it to the whole world. And South African Parliament passed a motion of commendation for Gift of the Givers for entering Syria illegally, not out. Take notice of the building. It's one level only. You can see? One level only. That's the building. That's what we converted inside. Oxygen lines, wards, beds, phototherapy unit for incubators, pharmacy, laboratory area, like a laboratory area again, the inside of the building. The guy next to me, Dr. Gandour, that's a one-man army. The architect, the engineer, the cardiothoracic surgeon, the pediatrician, the gynecologist, the orthopedic surgeon, the general surgeon, the mayor, the governor, and when Assad is gone, he'll be the president. That's the team's disaster. Bombs falling all around the building. Missiles falling around you. The biggest tragedy is when a man shoots his own child in the heart, cleaning his gun. Because none of them know how to use gun. They're farmers, the agricultural people. They're not violent people. You see all these violent groups that got nothing to do with Islam. There's nothing to do with the religious beliefs. The people on the ground, 20 million of them are docile, simple people who are agricultural people who don't want to kill anybody. The only people they killed was themselves. because they don't know how to shoot guns. They have never trained in military. And other people have come in to hijack the whole situation in the country. Many people died. This is our emergency team at work. The theatre, different aspects. Wound care, incubator, facial surgery. Twins, many twins were born. This man is 74 years old. A South African, 74 years old, comes on a mission in a war zone on his wedding anniversary and on his birthday. 74-year-old birthday and his wedding anniversary, he comes on a mission. He leaves everything behind to serve. It doesn't matter which religion, what color, spirituality drives him. This book is about spirituality. That's my daughter-in-law. She became my daughter-in-law after this mission, because my son came behind me with year 2. Another spiritual story. Before I took her, she kept on following me. She said, I want to come, I'm a dentist. I said, the war zone, who the hell bloody needs a dentist? Any case, when I went back in March, when I got there, I realized the one building is not going to be enough. With a big medical team coming for primary health care, we need a second building. So we walked to the streets of Dalkush and we found a second building. And we used the second building. But because our faith was so strong, when I went to that building and I opened one of the doors, there was a brand new dental chair parked off in that building. It was meant for her to go on that mission. That was our first dental mission in our history. And they were the busiest. 80 to 90 patients a day, working till 9 o'clock at night. Wound care, the camps. We decided to expand the hospital. It is now the largest hospital in the whole of North Syria. Within a few months, it may be the largest hospital in all Syria. Not in size, but because of its capacity and what it can do. Because most of the hospitals have been bombed and destroyed. They've tried many times to bomb this hospital, and we continue building it. We're the only crazy people who build things in a war zone, because it's faith. You cannot walk away and leave people unattended. 10,000 patients a month from every aspect of Syria, area of Syria, is treated in this hospital. That's how it looks now. And it's still evolving. That's 3 floors. Expanded at the bottom, at the top, in the back, in the side, and even across the road. The last story. Typhoon Philippines last year, November. Our teams waited while everybody went to the Tacloban. Ahmed went with the whole group. The destruction all over the island. 42-hour journey to get there. Packing the crates and getting ready, they took a big risk. They took this boat and went across a rough sea, across to Palawan Island. Even when they got to the mayor was shocked. So how did you guys come out with a thing like this? They risked their lives and went across that sea to be there. They got a warm reception and they said, you guys are the first international team, the first team in the world that has come to our island. You give us hope, you give us inspiration. Ahmed knows, the first thing you grab is the medical facility. They were going to shut this hospital down. If you shut the hospital down, you shut the heart of the city. You shut life, you shut the island down. But it was destroyed, the top floor was gone. Where the theatre is, where all the important things were, it was gone. Ahmed phoned me from there, he says, what must we do? I said, you know the protocol. Fix the bloody hospital up. 1,200 square meters they fixed up in 3 days with roof. In the island, 1,200 square meters. Again, the Afrikaner guys. Very good at building things. And Ahmed very good at spending money. Depleted all the budgets from Cebu Island and brought all the medical equipment in. So that when the management team walked in, everything was set and ready. They arranged everything, but you know what? When they got there, the people were demoralized. They had no spirit. They didn't want to do anything. They were heartbroken. The moment they started knocking the nails in the hospital and started putting the roofs on, when you put the nail and the hammer down, you could hear the hammer and the nail knocking every part of Palawan Island. People suddenly got life. They started working. You instilled spirit in them. You psychologically kept them up. You gave them moral and emotional support, and they start empowering themselves once again. The nurses that came to the hospital, the teams who had worked in the hospital, we refurbished the whole hospital. Dentist again. He took out 1,000 teeth. Cocolex teeth. On the mountain, the staff went through rough areas, hills in a mountain on a motorbike, to serve outlying areas, to get to the people because the people could not get to us. This was all outlying service. It was raining, but of course the weather was good. These are the nurses. These nurses took our teams into the mountains. 1 year, none of them have been paid. Nobody got a salary. Pete didn't get any medicines. Nobody had medicines. They were demoralized. The moment we started putting the hospital right, these same nurses came to work with a pure white uniform, neatly ironed, gave a smile to everybody from 8:30 to 4:30. When they left for home at 4:30, they had no house. They stayed outside. They had no food. But they came back the next day and they gave you the big smile. That is humanity. That is for spirituality. And they served and they worked. So Ahmed took a decision. He will feed all the nurses, he will feed all the doctors, he will feed the hospital, he will feed the patients, and he will send home food home with the nurses to their families. And that's the type of teams we have. That's the quality of the people that go. They're given the right, the opportunity to make decisions, to help people on the spot. They think for themselves, they do things, and this is training and education for the people in Palapon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is only a bit of what is in the book. The essence is what South Africans do. The essence is what the teams do. The essence is spirituality and humanity. What love, taking the risk and going over and over again. And let me tell you a secret. You know who puts up their hand first? The guy who got the biggest house, who's got 5 expensive cars, who can afford a 7-star hotel, who can expect the best food, afford the best food, who can go on the best holiday. He will cancel his holiday, he will give up that food, and he will go out to sleep next to a sewer, in an open air where bombs are falling, where it's dirty and there's no food and no water, and he will keep coming over and over again. There's no money there. Why does he come back over and over again? Because he gets spirituality. Without spirituality, there is no price to spirituality. You can't explain it. You have to experience it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
There's not much one can say. One needs to actually absorb what we've just seen. But what comes to mind is, in fact, just a conversation I had before the function started, and I was speaking to one of our guests, and just to praise what he said, you know, brutality will eventually exhaust itself, but goodness and humanity lives on, and I think this is what we saw. Another big hand to Dr. And indeed, I think, you know, we tend to be very negative about ourselves. And it's not just out of introspection. I think it's, you know, you see what happens around and you say, you know, this country is failing, etc. I think we really owe it to ourselves to actually say that we have the spirit, we have the goodness. We've come out of, as Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman put it, you know, a brutal past, but also a past that was hate-filled, a past where we didn't trust each other. But we've built a country which we can be proud of. And I suppose, you know, after looking at this and after reading the book, I think when we realize how others appreciate what South Africans do, I think we will start appreciating ourselves. Thank you very much, Dr. Imtiaz. It is now my privilege and honor to introduce you to someone, and a friend, a colleague, an award-winning journalist, presenter of the Drive Time program on Voice of the Cape, I think going close on to 2 decades now presenting that program, and a regular contributor to our newspaper, The Muslim Views, author of 2 books, Notebook from Makkah and Medina, and Surfing Behind the Wall, My Palestinian Journey. And I think, surfing behind the wall, I don't know if many are aware, but it tells you something about what Shafiq does full-time, part-time journalist, full-time surfer. So that's where the title comes from. I was introduced to Shafiq by a mutual friend in 1987, Adil Bradlow, another journalist. And Shafiq was running a surfing magazine, publishing and editing a surfing magazine. And as the magazine was kind of coming towards its closing days, Adil phoned me and he says, look, I've got a friend, a good journalist, and he said, you must have read his columns, writes a surfing column in the Cape Times. I said, Steve Morton. So he says, yeah, that's the guy. And he says, look, he's prepared to write and join your outfit. And Muslim Views had just relaunched. I think we were 1 year into our relaunch, and or launch really, because our predecessor had closed. We were given about 2 weeks' notice, and we started Muslim Views. And a year later, Shafiq came along, and really, I think it was in that period, in 1987, that Muslim Views really established itself. So I owe Shafiq a deep debt of gratitude. Thank you for being there during the tough times, and it was really great working with Shafiq. Another aspect of Shafiq is, many of us struggle to be stable with a tripod and shooting a portrait of someone seated. Shafiq, in fact, one of the things that really I think is part of his portfolio, which he didn't pass on to me, but which I picked up in the Weekend Argus just before he joined us, was a portfolio of photographs that he took while on a surfboard. So that's the quality and caliber of photographer that Shafiq is. But an excellent journalist, written, as I said, 2 books, and this is the 3rd one. Imtiaz Sooliman and The Gift of the Givers, A Mercy to All. And, he gives meaning to the prophetic axiom that the pen is mightier than the sword. And as he referred, when he signed the book in Cape Town, when he presented this book to me, I would like to say, my comrade in ink, welcome. And Shafiq Morton, author of the book, another big hand to him, please.
Good evening, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. And that's where I run out of languages. I'm going to keep it as brief as possible. There's a very wise Chinese sage called Confucius who says, don't talk too long before dinner. So I'm going to keep it as brief as possible. Thank you very much for all the kind words that everybody said about me. I don't know who that person is, but thank you very much. Writing the book has been a very interesting experience. I think the persuasive powers of Louise and Dr. Sooliman have been underrated. Because how it happened was I got a telephone call, not from one person, but 2 people, saying, Shafiq, can you please, not please, but can you write the book? And I agreed. And when I'd agreed, I thought, oh my God, what have I let myself in for? Fortunately, we have the result today. But on a more serious note, it was a very interesting journey. I went on the same journey that you've just gone through. In 5.5 months and about 80,000 words, I had to traverse 22 years of Gift of the Givers. I've dealt with hundreds of NGOs in my career as a journalist. I've also accompanied other aid agencies to disasters around the world. In fact, some people say I'm a disaster tourist. Can't have a normal holiday. And I can say with the greatest amount of confidence that what sets Gift to the Givers apart from any other organization that I've had the privilege of dealing with is its core of spirituality. And this is in fact the true meaning of spirituality. Being a spiritual person is not sitting in a dark cave and wondering where your navel is. That's not spirituality. Spirituality is how you interact and how you are with other human beings. And you'll find, if you travel a lot, and I've had the privilege of doing that, you find that good human beings are everywhere you find them, in all corners of the earth. Yes, goodness can be faith-based, but it's based in the multitude of faiths and in the multitudes of kinds of people that we see on earth. My humble view is that our differences should be more of a blessing than they are the curse that they are sometimes today. Very briefly, before I take you on a brief pictorial journey, I think it has to be emphasized, like Dr. Suleiman, I'm just an agent of this book, because this book is of many parts and many people. And the people who really make it are those who sacrifice their time to go on these missions, who give up their weekends to go and help people in Kailicha, in Soweto, at Marikana, in Somalia, in Mogadishu, all parts of the world. And the real heroes are not the author, they're the people who go on the missions. And I think it would be only fitting if we would give them all a round of applause, those who are here and those who are not here. They really deserve it. I have seen some amazing things. The search and rescue guys go in, and they're the poor guys that have to put up the tents, find out where the running water is, get the food. And I know I spoke to Ahmed Bam when Dr. Suleiman sent him on the first mission on his own, and how nervous he was, but he pulled through. Also, Yaqub Esak as well, who's also done all of the medical stuff, and many other people. I see Dr. Borat there as well, in fact, two of them, and a lot of people, in fact. Great, great work. Of course, also the support of families as well. I think the families also need a round of applause, because sometimes a person goes to dangerous places and they are always behind. I thought the best way I can do something is to take you on a pictorial journey. I think pictures in this case do speak louder than 1,000 words. So if somebody could just dip the lights halfway, and I'll take you on a very quick journey. If I can find the right arrow. Right. This is one of the missions to Niger, a famine, and you can see that Dr. Suleiman was developing the idea that he needed to bring media with him on his stories. Not for the sexiness of the stories, but to show South Africans, to show donors, and to show people what's being done by South Africans, and to show a true sense of accountability. I do not know of any other aid agencies in the world that are so open to media, and who is so accommodating to media, and who's got the guts to take a bunch of journalists to international places. In journalism, there's just as much politics as there is in politics. That is Dr. Suleiman after Edgar's. And of course, the Syrian mission was a very important one, and it's already been discussed, but I think the dynamics behind it are very important, in that it's the first time I'd seen Dr. Suleiman in more than 20 years actually going on the roads and telling people, we need your help. Travel first class, very nice, yes. In fact, what you do for a seatbelt, you hold onto the rope. But there's something that has not been mentioned. The toilet facilities are not very good on Russian planes. In fact, it's a bucket. So on a 9-hour flight, you always make sure that you are well emptied before that, because there's nothing like an air pocket when you're sitting on a bucket. It hits you very hard. You arrive at a country, and all of a sudden, it's in your face, the problems that you have to deal with. And as journalists, we've actually learned to recognize things like malnutrition quite successfully over the years, being guided by the doctors' teams. Every suffering person I show you here was offered relief by Gift to the Givers. Najir come to a hospital 50 kilometers outside Niamey, no medicine, no doctors, no nothing. These women had been waiting for something like 10 days with their children, just hoping that somebody was going to help. And I always like to think that the aeroplanes that Gift to the Givers filled are actually, it's a mobile prayer. That aeroplane with all those goods is going to answer the prayer of somebody in a far-flung corner of the world. We came across this child at death's door. The child was saved by Gift to the Givers doctors. Africa is truly an amazing place. Those people were queuing up outside the van because they thought I was a doctor. But their good behavior, their manners, and their humility is something that is absolutely amazing. There's so many things I can say about the Najir story, but you'll notice that in the picture, it's just women and children. These people realized the value of the lives that had to be saved. The lives that had to be saved was the children and the very young ones who were suffering the most. These doctors worked in something like 40-degree heat, that's inside in the shade, and at one stage it was almost 10 seconds a patient. So many people came because the treatment was offered free of charge. This is something that is a very important dynamic. Sub-Saharan Africa, and this is a reality that all aid organizations are facing starkly in the face. That is a river in the middle of the rainy season. It's dry. The people who've been hit the worst by climate change are the poorest, and they all live in Sub-Saharan Africa. Back home, Emily and her cabbages, she works for the Johannesburg office. Just one of the many, many outreach programs that is almost difficult to encompass. And I think that is either Orange Farm or Alexandra, where those vegetable gardens are being grown. Adelaide Tambo Special School in Soweto, touching story. When Mrs. Adelaide Tambo was on her deathbed, one of her wishes was that the special school would still carry on. And one of the organizations that has intervened to make sure that the school still functions is Gift to the Givers. Housing schemes for the poor, especially in areas that have been ravaged by fire or flood. The big picture is Khayelitsha in Cape Town, the small one is Alexandra, which is here. If anybody is from government, please take note. Here is a successful model of sub-economic housing that offers people housing with space, with dignity and shelter from the weather, and at quarter of the price. Careline is one of the unsung stories, I would say, of Gift to the Givers. When I was researching the book, it really stood out. Something like 300 to 400 sessions a month. Zohra is sitting here. This was something that she was the brainchild and the driving force behind it. And Careline is recognized by the University of KwaZulu-Natal and by other academic institutions for the work that it does. Dr. Anas Al-Hamati is a hero. He is the Yemeni who initiated the procedure to try and get Pierre and Yolanda Korki freed from captivity. And as we stand here tonight, we are on tenterhooks. We're hoping, God willing, that Pierre Korki will be home very soon. It's the small things that tell you the big things. The small thing in this picture, Kosovo 1999, ice on the ground, absolutely freezing. The child has no shoes. I thought I would show what Gaza looked like before all the problems. That's a beach camp in Gaza, and I'm sure as South Africans, we can recognize the realities even before the conflict. The sewage in the road, no tarred roads, the way that people have to get electricity, and the weakness of the infrastructure. Remember one thing, Palestinians, by the way, are not a third world nation, they're a first world nation. Gaza is so cramped that that pier, what looks like a pier, is in fact where they have to put the rubbish. There's nowhere to dump the rubbish anymore. A challenge anywhere in the world for any aid organization is the children. Places like Gaza, 60% of the population is under the age of 35. Another 50% is under the age of 20. This is a challenge for all of us. We have to ensure that these people have a future. That is, Haiti has been dealt with, so I'm going to just flash through that. That is one of the South African doctors, an orthopedic surgeon. I think it's Dr. De Beer, if I'm not mistaken. A quick story. One of the orthopedic surgeons told me over the weekend that on one mission they were actually doing operations with a drill that they bought at a hardware store because the other drill had expired. Now, doctors from the developed world won't even think of doing something like it. It's a drill, it does the same work, except all they had to do was make sure that the drill bit was sterilized after every single time it was used. And one thing I can say is that our South African doctors are some of the most creative medical people in the world, because I've seen them work miracles. Dr. De Beer in Somalia, saving the life of a young child by cutting his bones out and joining them together again, like a jigsaw puzzle. Dr. Torino using pieces of bone to join bones together because they had no more metal. Or the orthopedic surgeons doing panel beating with bits of metal to save lives. And of course, all the other categories of medicine, amazing things occurring. Lebanon, 2006, I think, that's Guts Airline. That was a Jordanian plane that flew us in, and the amazing thing, we look out the window and there's fighter jets flying around us. And the plane had to go across the runway because of the bomb craters, and the pilot was revving his engines by the time the cargo was out. He was gone. This is the reality you have to deal with in times of war. I hate war. I hate politicians as well sometimes for causing wars, because it's always the innocent that suffer, and those who make the decisions walk away scot-free most of the time, and we have to pick up the pieces. This is a reality. Give to the Givers has to get south. That's the freeway south. You come along, hang on a minute, a smart bomb has taken out the freeway, so into the hills one has to drive to get aid to Sidon. That's another reality. Pakistan, the earthquake before this killed hundreds of thousands of people, we don't know how many. Then the country suffers a flood, which is of, I suppose, Noah-like proportions, I don't know. It's one of the most incredible but horrifying things I think I've ever seen. I've never seen land covered with so much water. That was the road. Disasters are about people, actually, not about statistics and numbers. And it's young people that often get affected. But what is important is basic things like water, the small things. And I wonder how many people know how many times Give to the Givers has taken South African technology on missions, and how many people know that South African technology in terms of water purification is probably the best in the world. Faces of anguish, uncertainty, and this is why I think that sometimes charity isn't a smile. Because once everybody had smiled and patted that child, she was a different person. My translator said that woman actually proposed to me, I don't know, but Pakistani people are amazing. come back to Karachi, and there they are playing a cricket test match on top of a building. Libya, the untold story of Libya. Libya suffered a huge wave of xenophobia because Gaddafi's troops were African mercenaries, and when the uprising came, the people turned against all African people, and these poor guys were stuck at the Egyptian border when we came in. And the funny thing about disasters, people think you're mad because you're going into a place everybody is running away from. The hard realities. That was the front line when we were in Libya, and that is the place where Anton Hamel, the South African photographer, was actually killed. This is a tribute to the Gift of the Givers teams who go to these places of war in spite of the danger. That was the car in which the Al Jazeera journalist was killed with a South African sniper rifle. And you can see it was deliberate. He was sitting at that part of the car. They knew he was sitting there, and they took him out on purpose. In times of disaster, people try to come to terms with what's happened. And in Benghazi, these are people looking for those who died while in detention, those who've been killed, trying to come to terms with their lives. Sometimes as journalists we discover some horrifying truths. This was a place that the people of the revolution discovered. People were alive in that particular hole when they were discovered. That's why I don't like politicians. Gift of the Givers team working in Benghazi, a nice hospital, but no nurses and no staff because everybody had fled because of the war, and the team moved in and did some precious work and again saved lives. Somalia, internally displaced refugees. The building on the right-hand side used to be the Houses of Parliament in Mogadishu, and those are the conditions under which the refugees were living in Mogadishu. There's no running water there. There's no fuel, there's no sanitation, and we don't even know how they are actually eating. Mogadishu was once known as the Pearl of East Africa. It's absolutely a beautiful place, what it used to be. This again underlines how difficult missions can be, because as you can see, there's no infrastructure. On the left is law, and the right is order. How do South Africans make an impact? It's the small things. It's exactly what Dr. Manzara is doing. They're putting his head his hand on the head of that baby. What I've been told by people on these missions is they say, we like you South Africans, and I say, why? They say, because you love us and because you care for us, and mainly because you don't think we're dirty and you actually touch us. It's actually quite horrifying, and Dr. Suleiman has referred to it. Our doctors will tell you that the mess that sometimes they have to clean up after certain people have moved through these zones. When people are starving, it's very difficult to find a vein, and there's one of Gift of the Givers doctors in Mogadishu trying to find a vein in the arm of their child. The poorest people are always the most compassionate. That was an old man who actually carried his wife to the hospital, and when I asked, they'd walked 30 kilometers to come for medical care. That's a life being saved, and everybody knows the love of a parent. That father did not leave the side of that child all the time that I observed them. You can see the drip in the background. Banadia Hospital, another hospital, Gift of the Givers worked in 4 hospitals in Somalia. Nasrin Siad, a life was saved. You pick up a baby and you will say, is your baby is your baby 3 months? And the mother will say, no, the baby is 18 months or 2 years. Lives nobody could save. Those 2 men had come from about 100 kilometers from inland to Mogadishu. They were just living in the bush in the city, and they had buried, of 20 of their family, they'd buried 16. They were preparing the grave for a small child that had died of measles. And when we spoke to them, they had seen no aid, no foreigners, no nothing. You can't help everybody, but those you do help, you make a huge impact. Gift of the Givers, if I'm not mistaken, at one stage was feeding more than 30,000 people a day at the height of the famine. The spirit of those who are suffering is unbelievable. These women don't even know where their husbands are. This is Al Huda camp outside Mogadishu. I'm walking around the camp and they are smiling and saying, come inside, welcome. They have nothing, but they've got everything. In Cape Town, Khaba Said, who works in Cape Town, I call her a child magnet. The story of Fedwal, I'm not going to talk too much about it, except before Fedwal became a story, I couldn't even find it in Google. Something about nutrition, which is a big thing in Africa, because people may look fat and chubby, does not mean that they have good nutrition. And this is something that Sibusiso, a project of Gift of the Givers, has made a huge impact. This is helping the people of Fedwal, and those big trucks, well, they are trucks of mercy. Again, South Africans being human to other South Africans in the Philippines. Again, the people of the Philippines are absolutely amazing. Food aid in Yemen. And something that was told to me by one of the doctors who said the gift is always in the giving. And I think that that is what I always take away from all the experiences with Gift of the Givers. And thank you very much. You've been incredibly patient. And of course, thank you very much for coming through this traffic in Johannesburg to this function this evening. Thank you very much.
To Shafiq Morton, a photo commentary of his journey and the journey of Gift of the Givers. Shafiq said something about not talking too long before dinner. Some other philosopher said that the worst enemy is the person who stands between the audience and dinner, and that happens to be me. But I'll put Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman in my place. Just one very quick presentation. He wants to introduce you to a group, two groups of people, and then the thank yous and the meal will be served. Thanks.
I think we won't do justice to the organization. Firstly, if we don't introduce the brand Guardian. Gift of the Givers is a brand in South Africa and throughout the world. And the people who designed the brand are from Essiga and Javelin. They mentioned in the book, I met Salvan Mudley many years ago. And he said, Doc, everybody thinks this is the Muslim thing. We need to take this Muslim thing away. We need to make it a South African thing. He's the one that designed the shirt, the flags, the logo, and he said, let's drive it and put South Africa behind you. He said, one day, we want the whole country to say, this is South Africa's Gift of the Givers. And that happened in Haiti in 2010. Salvan and Ray, I think Gift of the Givers is incomplete without you. I need you guys to come to the front.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming through to Dr. Sooliman's launch of the book and Gift the Givers. We've been honored to meet him. We've been honored and inspired by the work we do with him. We started our company 15 years ago. We didn't have any money, but we saw him on TV, so we offered our skills. We always had a lot of design capability and design. So we went to Doc and said, we don't have money, but we help you do this. And the funny part is after we started doing that, our company started to skyrocket. So everything starts to come together. We're lucky that now we work with the biggest corporates in the country, and we still involved with Gift the Givers. And we're inspired every day by this man, a qualified doctor. If I qualified as a doctor, I would be practicing driving probably 2 or 3 cars. Dr. Sooliman jumps on the plane and gets to the worst parts of the world. I don't know how he does it. It's quite amazing faith that you must have to do this. And in any small way that we can contribute within time, skill, resources, I applaud everybody. Try to get in touch with him and give whatever you got. We had a little bit of skill to hand over, and we wanted to make sure that the organization embraced the country. And when I spoke to him about it, this man has been very successful, and you're going to tell him that his brand up is that it doesn't represent the country. And he says, do whatever you want to do. And we change everything. And that's an amazing ability to accept change in order to encompass and represent the entire country. We love Bafana Bafana or the Springboks or the Proteas. We should love Gift the Givers just equally. Thank you very much.
I think Selvan has echoed all of my sentiments, and just to Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, you've really inspired us in ways that you cannot believe. And thank you so much for making us part of your journey.
There's a chapter in the book called, there's a discussion on a story called Jumpstart. It's an entrepreneurial program for youth. We put kids at school to work. Some kids in grade 11 are earning 10,000 rand a month. It's a program they've designed as part of Gift of the Givers. And the final thing, all the medical guys, I need you to come to the front. Without you guys, there is no Gift of the Givers. Ahmed, Kasim, Sridhar, Asma, come. Whoever is here, all of you, and the whole medical team. We started off in the Somalia mission with 7. We now have 150 volunteers. And they're more crazier with each day. The more the bombs fall, those are the countries they want to go to. The more the bombing is, the bigger the number of volunteers. And there's a new phenomenon. We are now getting calls from America, from Australia, from Europe, from Far East. People from all over the world want to join our teams. I've been invited to Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. Please come and speak. We want medical teams to join you. We could have more doctors and patients at this rate on the other side. But because they've set the standard. Give them a hand. Stay there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sooliman, and Dr. Imtiaz just wants to know if there are any journalists here who have traveled with him on any of the missions. If you are here, just come to the front. Are there any?
The longest serving journalist on my missions and the biggest headache. And Afrikaner on top of it too.
He wants me to say something, and I'm not used to talk in front of crowds. But I have to say something which Imtiaz said earlier on about the spirituality and embracing all groups. This is what I get from Gift of the Givers. Sorry, my voice is vibrating now. I'm a Boeremeester from the Free State. I'm white. I'm very anti what they believe in, a hug and kiss, and he allows me to do that. And I come back from every trip, and I'm so enthused about what I do. And Imtiaz has taught me to just be what I am and allow me to be what I am, and he's one of my mentors in life, honestly.
I'm Ragini, and I've probably known Doc for about 20 years now. Since he started GIFT, I tried to give him publicity when the hospital was going to Bosnia. Since then, he's helped me out when I went to Palestine, and I was the only South African journalist there. I came back with a huge satellite phone bill, and without blinking an eye, he paid my bill. I've traveled with him to Gujarat, to an earthquake, to Niger, and I work at ENCA, and for us, as much as I'm a journalist during the day and a volunteer at night for him, for me it's never a conflict of interest, because if you're publicizing good work that people are doing, and if this is the spirit that all South Africans should embrace, then for me there's no conflict of interest to be a journalist and to help him when he works.
Thank you very much, Ragini. And so I can tell my newsroom that there was no conflict of interest. My presence here, Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman said, he called me last minute, but you know, it is out of a sense of duty. And Shafiq would know we are currently in the middle of our biggest deadline for the years, but thank you. To me, it's really, I must thank you for having invited me and being able to give a little bit of myself to the Gift of the Givers. That brings us to the end of the program, but I just want to thank each and every one. There are a few people that we want to thank in particular. First of all, the University of Johannesburg, and in particular Logic and Godfrey, for facilitating the use of this venue and for really being on standby and meeting the at times I think very the very strict demands and the stringent kind of demands that have been put on them. But thank you very much to Ibi and his team from Moby Sound. Thank you very much. The catering, Anwar and his team. The staff of Gift of the Givers, the backroom staff for all the work that they have put in. And then I also just want to, this is normally done as part of a welcome, but I want to say as part of a thank you, first of all, to each and everyone here for having accepted the invitation to attend this book launch, to attend the function. But in particular, I would like to thank Sheikh Ibrahim Skatema of the Tarqawi Sufi Order. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. And to Sister Amatullah Armstrong, who is from Australia, thank you for joining us as well. And then we have a few guests from Uganda, from Turkey actually, and very interestingly, they're attending a conference here at UJ, and they've kindly accepted our invitation. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. And once again, and just on the final note, after you have purchased your books, which are on sale in the foyer, Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman and Shafiq will be here on my right, that's your left. There's a table, and if you can queue up, as you saw in the photograph, they queued up for food. So I'm sure you will diligently queue up to have your books signed. Thank you very much. Enjoy the day.